more recently, there's come into being an almost opposite way of understanding our period in history, our moment, and that is that there was at one time a greater sense of interconnected unity between the human being and nature and a spiritual dimension of existence. And that as a result of a kind of exaggerated growth of a particular form of relating to the world, that the modern rational mind has encouraged and in fact legitimized as the only objective way of being oriented to the world. As a result of that, it has brought about, in this second perspective, the second paradigm of history, it has brought about a great fall from an original state of eco-spiritual participation mystique, a kind of participation in the greater whole of nature, and has caused a ecological devastation and harm to great like indigenous traditional societies, and also a less happy state of the human soul, even the modern soul, which feels ever less fulfilled, more shallow, disillusioned, disenchanted, etc. And so you can see how this form of the myth of the fall and the myth of progress are both kind of in a taut interplay right now in the paradigm wars, so to speak, where we are thinking about what is the human future? Is it upward or downward? Is it a heroic progress or is it a tragic loss? And I think that any adequate narrative self-understanding that we could have in our time has to take account of both of those, because each of them has a purchase on something actual. Each perspective is discerning something authentic, significant, but that if you once, in a one-sided way, emphasize just that perspective and don't take into account the shadow of it, then one is kind of, it's a very one-sided picture. And what we somehow need to bring about is an interplay of the two. I think of it as like those two faces in profile, like two black faces in profile that can also look like a white vase if you do a gestalt shift in your perception. As I've come to gain some insight into our time, it seems to me that we seem to be going through a profound descent that is both an outcome of the tremendous progressive epic of our human evolution, and at the same time it is a sense of loss of that, the loss of the old certainties of, say, modern triumph, but also the loss in the other ways that I was talking about of the participation mystique, the sense of being in touch with the soul of the world. And as a result of this descent, we're going through something that resembles in many ways a kind of dark night of the soul and a hero's journey in which one actually does descend into a kind of state of profound uncertainty, facing of the shadow, a sense of the former sense of confident unity is splintered into many fragments. There's a crisis of identity. There's a sense of facing mortality now on a planetary scale. So in all those ways, it resembles a kind of initiatory rite of passage. And in that sense, I think we can see how this transformational moment we are in, our historical situation today, may reflect a kind of progressive descent in which we're going through a kind of radical transformation of identity, of who we are in relationship to the world, facing of a certain shadow that we weren't willing to see in our own kind of egoic, hyper-confident objectifying of the world, and perhaps the possibility of coming into relationship to the whole as a species, as individual human beings, in a more relational way, a way that gives profound respect, even reverence for the whole out of which we emerged, instead of putting all the focus on our kind of anthropocentric importance. So I would suggest that one way of looking at our moment in history is as a kind of moment of spiritual transformation upon which our biological future probably depends.